Hello, thanks for tuning in. This is episode 3 of the vr150 underhood install series. Today we're going to be working on the heat exchanger, modifying the upper and lower radiator hoses, and getting the cooler installed underneath the chassis. It is a little dark underneath there, some tight areas. I don't know if I can get the camera in, but I'll try to go over best I can. There are some good reference pictures in the manual, and I'll try to attach those throughout the video. As normal, let me know if you have any questions. And if we have time on this video, we'll jump into the next section, which is modifying one of the battery boxes is to accept a coolant bottle. As I said, it's going to be pretty hard to get in here to see. But your first step is, this is your lower radiator hose. It's got to come off. So first step is you want to pull this clip, and there's one. I don't think the phone will even fit in here. There you go. You can see the middle side of it there. All right, you pull those two. Then you take your 8mm bolts out right here. See if it'll focus. And then one here. And then you pull the tab off the other side. Now you can do this one from the other one from the top. But what I do is usually reach through the fender and take them off. So I take these 8mm bolts off first, and then I take that loose, and I put a drain pan underneath it, because once you break that loose, that whole hose is full of fluid, and you're going to lose another half a gallon or so. So pop that clip, pop the other clip, hoses off, and I'll come back when it's actually on the workbench so you can see what I'm doing with it. Alright, we're back at the workbench. Here we got all our components that we're going to be working with today, especially on this video. Here we have our liquid to liquid heat exchanger, cooler, whatever you want to call it. This is actually what we're going to tie into the engine cooling system, and it cools the compressor oil, and I can explain how that works later. Got a couple of pipes that come with the kit, the bracket to mount it, and then obviously your parts kit here. And your parts kit is actually laid out, and it tells you, see if you can get this closer to the camera. It actually tells you that it's for the cooler, gives you a part number on this entire kit here. After you've done a few of these, you'll kind of know where everything goes, but say it's your first one, take it, lay it out. It even comes with your zip ties. All this are the items you're going to need. You're going to need the clamps, you're going to need the bolts to bolt it on, that's the plug, that's the mount to the cooler there, or actually the spacer, and then to mount the cooler behind it. So all this is stuff you're going to need. Here's the lower radiator hose off the truck itself. Okay, we're going to be modifying this, and what I mean is this is going to be the in and the out. We're actually really just putting it in between these two things if you really sat down and looked at it. Alright, so the book does give us measurements. It does say we're going to measure, this is the radiator side here, this is the engine side. And it shows you the diagrams and the pictures, but it says you're going to measure down 4.5 inches. First we're going to try to roll this up a little bit. Sometimes easier said than done. Any of this stuff here, do not take it off. If anything, you're going to add more of it than the book actually calls out for once it's done. These anti-abrasion mats, or excuse me, anti-abrasions are pretty nice because they'll keep the hoses from getting damaged and everything. So, very simple. Just take a tape measure, string, whatever you have. You're going to measure the outside radius. Okay, don't know if you can see that, but the bend, there's the bend in the hose just like this. So you're going to measure the outside radius to 4.5 inches. I need to move this thing a little farther. Measure our 4.5 inches outside radius. You measure from this little cuff right here. Okay. The book actually tells you exactly where to put your tape measure, string, whatever you want. And it doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't have to be perfect. Take it, grease pen, knife, whatever you want. Just put a little mark on it so you don't lose it. I take one of these. These are about wore out. Take one of these. Be nice if I need to buy a new set of these things. Alright, there's your first piece. That can go back on the radiator at any time, actually. I usually wait till I'm getting ready to put the cooler in and kind of put it all in at one time. So we'll set that one to the side and move on to the next side. This is the other side. This is the engine side. The engine side's got a little bit different because you're trying to measure from the bend, which is, again, the outside radius here. See, here's the inside, here's the outside. You can either push this up or push it down. It doesn't matter either way. And for this side, I think we're going to measure 6 inches off. Let me check my book here so I don't tell you wrong. Yep, so 6 inches around the outside radius. So here, 6 inches. This is pretty exact, but don't get carried away thinking it's got to be absolutely perfect, but you want it close as you can get because they have determined what works and what doesn't at this point in time. Alright, it's my mark. Just going to check it again, make sure I'm close. Alright, got the mark on the 6-inch one. We're going to cut it just like we did the other side. Again, you can use a knife, use a saw, I don't care, whatever works best for you. These work really good when they're sharp. They have almost reached the end of their life after a lot of years. But they do help keep it a little bit straighter than trying to cut with a razor knife. Alright, 2 sides. You will need this. Okay, this is exactly what you're going to use to make all your anti-abrasion. It'll keep pipes from rattling, things like that. And I'm going to show you how to do that. You're going to put this around a lot of different things that the manual doesn't call out for. The manual does call out for you to cut a straight piece of section out of this. So we can go ahead and do that now. It's kind of jumping ahead a little bit. But what I do is take it, find a straight area. Doesn't really matter where because this part's not being reused. So I jump a couple steps ahead. I'm trying to cut all the pieces needed before I actually climb underneath the truck again. Take these off, put them to the side. You're not going to need them for this particular truck, but I'll hold on to them. They are pretty nice clamps. I'm trying to remember how, I think it's a 6-inch piece we put here. Again, just eyeball it. Give you an idea what you're trying to do. Looks like my pliers maybe just gave out on me. I think they finally just gave out. Alright, extra piece, you are going to need that. Okay, for this piece, you got 2 options. You can slide it on now, slide it over the pipe, one of these, or you can cut it, rip it down the center, wrap it, and zip tie it. That's normally what I do, just because I think it's a little bit easier to get it in there if you just go ahead and cut it, put it on later, push it where it needs to go, then zip tie it in. So that's how I'm going to do it. The book actually calls for you to slide it on the pipe ahead of time. Again, by doing it this way, it'll fit up between the chassis better. Set that aside. You'll need this. Need these two pieces. Alright. Now we're ready to start jumping into actually mounting the cooler and getting the proper pipes on the right side. There is part numbers on these. Okay, maybe let's see if I can move it closer to the camera. Alright, there you go. Alright, so you can identify which one goes where based on the part number alone. What I do is I go ahead and open these. You will need every bit of these clamps. Put this in, and I'll show you once it goes in the truck, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And we're getting ready to need these here too. So let's get that one, that. Because all the fastener packs are labeled, you got a good idea what goes where. This is the transmission cooler. The bolt here on each side. You're going to need a 10mm wrench, a 10mm socket. To put the heat exchanger in, you're going to need a 17mm socket and a 17mm wrench. You're also going to need blue Loctite for this project. So I'm going to try my best to film it, but there's no promises you can actually see what's going on. So these do not have anything on the back of them. Okay. These little tabs, these little fasteners here, I guess studs more than anything, just pull up. I'm sure you cannot see that with my big hands in the way. Push it in, they come out. You will not be reusing them. For some reason I hold on to all this stuff. I guess you never know when you're going to need it. Oh, missed. Alright. Take your spacers and your bolts. It's right here. Let's see that. It's right here. Your spacer's going to go in here. They're actually going to space that cooler out a little bit. The reason you're doing that so you can actually get the bracket in that holds the heat exchanger in. Put you a dab of blue Loctite on the bolts. Because as we said on the first episode, it's cheap insurance. Put it on everything. You can do it whichever way you want to. You can stick it in through the back and do it through the front. In my mind, there's not a difference. I probably should do the other side first. You can leave this loose for the time being until you get the pipes in there. Some people leave it hanging. I don't, because I think it makes it harder to put the thing in there afterwards. I'll have to lay down here and do this. I can't see what I'm doing either. Some applications will be different. This is just the way the Ford is set up. Depending on which chassis you have, whether it be Ram or one of the GM, International, anything like that, they're all a little bit different when it comes to putting the heat exchangers in. So I left that loose for now. And the reason being is we want to put this tube in there. So this is the radiator side, which is the passenger side. And I've just stuck this on here for now. There's no clamps or anything on it. You can actually take it off. The idea is get this up in here before you tighten everything down. And I always seem to forget which is the easiest way to put it in until after I do it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the way it goes. And I might be putting it in the wrong side too. Maybe this side's got to go in first. Let's try that way. You can see how tight of a fit is. That's why you have the anti-abrasion sleeves on there. So for now, just stick it in place if you want to. You can do both sides. The other side, I don't put the anti-abrasion sleeve on until after it's bolted up. One thing I forgot, once you get the pipes in, you can go ahead and tighten these up. And I do suggest it, because we don't want them sitting here no longer than we have to. Again, these are 10 millimeter. Alright, there's no real way for me to get this camera in here where you can see what I'm doing. See this cutout in the bracket of the heat exchanger? What that does is that mounts right here. And see, here's the transmission cooler we just took off. And there's a little channel. So that little notch fits up in here. Now, what you do is take this bracket. Okay? It only really fits in here one way. If you look on top here, alright, bracket's in there, see? See the mounting holes here? And you look on this side, see the bolts, these threaded nuts here. So when you put that in there, the two longer bolts will be in this one, the shorter one's in the other one. Now, there's not that much difference between them. Make sure you put Loctite on these. You can tell, got a little Loctite on it. And these are 17 millimeter. Alright, got the heat exchanger in, tighten the bolts up, tubes are in, and I've rough fitted the pipes. Now it's time to put the elbows on. They are marked as far as which part number goes to which side. There's a diagram in the manual. One thing to consider, always pull these things out. So a lot of people that make the mistake and leave those things in there. Your elbows are marked with a part number. Follow the diagram. Put the right one on the right side, because if you don't, one of them will come up short. What I do is I start it on the pipe, push on the cooler, and don't tighten any clamps up until you're completely done. And what you'll find is you can move stuff around, make sure there's no bends, because you'll look up there and the manufacturer hose will be kinked or something. So make sure you leave no clamps up. Get it moved around where it's supposed to be. And look up through there and you'll see that there's, there, see if I can show you. Hold on. You can't even tell the way it's setting up. Got that on there. So we'll go to this side and do the same thing. Put the tube on. It only fits on really one way. Alright. Unit's plumbed in, tightened up. It is impossible to see this angle, but there we go. See the clamps are on this side, and we'll look at the engine in a second. We're getting ready to hook up this connection next, and it comes off of, if you see the factory, oh, got the thing upside down. If you see the factory clamp here, we're going to disconnect that, and we're going to put a plug in this hose and take that hose and connect it to the part on the heat exchanger. We'll do that now, and I'll try to get an image of it when it's done. I need to fix that clamp. It's not on there straight. See where the engine got hooked back up again. Alright, bear with me here. Alright, heat exchanger's mounted. We did put this tube in, as you seen earlier. Now, something I do a little bit different. You see the heater hose zip tied on top of the heater hose? What I do is I take a 3/4 inch heater hose and I wrap it around. So anywhere it crosses a sharp edge, like across top of that cooler, across the cross member, anywhere in there. I wrap it up with another piece with zip ties. That's not part of the instructions or part of the kit. That's just something that I do to add a little extra layer of protection. The reason being is you don't ever know where these trucks are going to be. There's a lot of vibration in them. And you can see up in where here it crosses over. But that wraps up the cooler part. We're probably going to either stop the video here and move on to modifying the battery box and stuff, which is the next section in the manual. So again, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode.